Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm back with my husband again today. Like last week, we are going to do a video regarding authenticity in Disney World. Last week we talked about the authenticity of the French Quarter, Port Orleans French Quarter, comparing it to the French Quarter in New Orleans, Louisiana. And today we're going to talk about Polynesia, Hawaii specifically, and the Polynesian Village Resort. Now, do you want me to give a little bit of history? Should we start with history on Polynesia?
Sure.
And what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so Polynesia is a group of islands in the central and southern part of the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
Do you know how many islands?
Like 12.
It's actually over 1,000.
Oh.
So you're close. Just a hair. Price is Right rules, you can't go over. So my husband and I were there in the middle to end of June, and by there I mean in Hawaii, celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. We went to Maui and to the Big Island of Hawaii. I had been to both before. He had never been. So I think his only comparison really was the Polynesian in Disney World.
Yeah, that's the closest I'd ever gotten. And I always wondered how close it really was to being in Hawaii. And, well, that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yes.
The Polynesian was one of the original Disney World resorts.
One of three.
One of three, the Contemporary and...
Fort Wilderness Campground.
Oh, that's right, Fort Wilderness Campground. So the original intention was that those three resorts were part of like phase one, and then phase two was going to include the Asian resort, the Venetian resort, and the Persian resort. None of those were ever built. One of them was built, they built on the site, and that's where the Grand Floridian is. The original Polynesian was intended to be in the style of a luxury tower resort in Waikiki Beach. Did you know this? It was basically just like a 10-story tall tower, and from the outside it didn't look Polynesian at all. And they ended up going with a Polynesian Village style resort, hence the name Disney's Polynesian Village Resort. And then it changed to Polynesian for a while, and now it's back to Polynesian Village.
That's really interesting because I have stayed on Waikiki Beach in one of like a tall tower-like hotel, and it is not at all, because Waikiki is on Oahu and it's in Honolulu, like downtown Honolulu, so that's a lot more city-like, so I can totally see why they did that, because that is not what you think of, even though Waikiki Beach is amazing and of course is tropical because it's a beach, but like looking at the hotels there, it is not what you think of when you think of tropical Polynesia type of hotels. It's much more like Maui or the Big Island of Hawaii.
So anyway, they settled, I was just looking at my notes, they settled on the Polynesian Village style resort, and I found a ton of information here from Tiki Man's unofficial Polynesian resort page. So
I have looked at it before, it's awesome.
Yeah, good job, Tiki Man. And he talks a lot about the authenticity and the history behind the Polynesian. So they even order fabric and their building materials from Hawaii for the Polynesian.
I didn't know that.
The Disney designers spent time in places like Samoa, Tahiti, and Hawaii to come up with the designs. The design for the Great Ceremonial House was inspired by the Royal Assembly Lodges in Tahiti. That's
a good transition, or to the point of the Great Ceremonial House is the main building. It is the only deluxe resort that does not have any guest rooms in the main building. And like the Grand Floridian, the majority, well, in the case of the Polynesian, in the case of the Grand Floridian, the majority of the guest rooms are in outer buildings. And at the Polynesian, they're Polynesian Village. It's their newly and old name now. They're called longhouses, and each of the longhouses is named after an island or country or territory in Polynesia.
Let me tell you more about that, because I found some information about that too. Some of the longhouses that accommodate resort guests have also undergone name revisions. Back in 1999, the Bali High building became Tonga. The original Tonga became Hawaii. The former Hawaii adopted Samoa. The former Samoa switched to Tuvalu. Tahiti was named Aote. Oh man, I've never heard of this place. Aotearoa. Bora Bora changed to Niue. Niue?
I would say Niue, but I'm not sure.
Maui changed to Rarotonga. Oahu switched to Tokelau.
Tokelau, I think.
Pago Pago turned into Rapa Nui, and Moorea became the new Tahiti. Why, you ask?
That was my question, because I'm like, that's super confusing, especially for people who have been going there like regularly and we're like, oh, we always request the Hawaii building, and now it's a different one. Oh, we should also say that they look the same. Yeah. It's just a name, like instead of at the Grand, well, I guess the Grand Floridian names too, but it's just instead of like being like a numbered building, like, oh, we're in building number 6 or something like that, like if you were staying at Coronado Springs, it's just a way to identify which building you're in. They're not actually themed differently.
So do you want to know why they changed them?
Please.
The current names for each building and the order in which they appear to one another on a resort map more accurately reflects the geographic coordinates of the real islands.
That's so cool. I love their authenticity. That's so cool.
How about this one? The kukui nut tree. Do you know about the kukui nut tree?
I know nothing about the kukui nut tree.
All right. So venture outside the Great Ceremonial House and you will find an actual real-life kukui nut tree, also known as the candle nut. This tree, the official state tree of Hawaii, is historically and culturally symbolic, standing for peace, protection, and enlightenment. The nuts from these trees have also been used medicinally throughout the ages, along with serving countless other key purposes, like being used in making leis.
Oh, do they use them? I wonder if they use them to make leis at the hotel. Probably
because they give you leis. That's another.
Yes, you do get leis upon arrival.
Transplanted here direct from Hawaii, you can find this one-of-a-kind tree right here on the grounds of the Polynesian. On a side note, there's also a time capsule tucked away at the tree's base.
That's cool. Very interesting.
Yep. What else did Tiki Man have to say? The role model for the Polynesian is the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, also known as, and it says this on their website, Hawaiian's most Hawaiian hotel.
When we landed at the airport in Kona on the big island of Hawaii, he thought, he's like, oh my gosh, this is totally Disney's inspiration, because it looks exactly like the style. There. I mean, we have a couple of pictures that we can pop in, but it looks very similar. The style of the building looks very similar to Disney's Polynesian Village Resort.
Yeah, that was the only place in Hawaii where the buildings, I was like, this is exactly like the Polynesian. The landscaping, the signage, that was like everywhere in Hawaii.
Yes.
Clyde Min, Director of Hotel Planning and Operations, said the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel is a great role model and living laboratory for evaluating our processes at Disney. The Ka'anapali Beach Resort also worked with our resort a few years ago on bringing more culture, etc. to our resort. That was when Clyde Min was the general manager. A lot of updating and changes started happening then. Instead of just being a Polynesian-themed hotel, more culture and knowledge of the islands were brought in. There was a cultural specialist that came to the resort and worked with our general manager on making those changes so they were authentic as possible. It was neat to see the changes take place.
So, I'm assuming the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel is on Maui, as Ka'anapali is on Maui. Okay, so getting to the point of how authentic is it? Now, we were talking about this before, and I think it is authentic. However, I think the island of Hawaii, and I would presume the other islands as well, are a bit more modernized as opposed to the Polynesia that Disney is trying to replicate or imitate, and I think that's a bit more of the original Polynesia that you would see if you had traveled there many years ago.
I was planning on putting pictures. The Ka'anapali Beach Resort looks nothing like the Polynesian.
So the Kona Airport looks more similar. Well, it's probably been remodeled.
Yeah.
In terms of the Polynesian Village Resort in Disney World looks nothing like the hotels we stayed at in Hawaii. Where we stayed in Hawaii was much more open air, but it's also a lot cooler in Hawaii. That's not to say it was cool, but it was not as oppressively hot as Disney World gets. So Disney World, they really need to have the air conditioning and stuff, and it wouldn't work to have everything completely open air. In terms of food specifically, now before I ever went to Hawaii, I was curious as to what kind of foods they have there, and they do have some Asian inspired foods. A lot of fresh seafood, fresh fish, because fishing is so such a big part of their culture. Watch Moana. But they do also have just a lot of regular food that you would find anywhere else in the U.S. Something that I have not seen at the Polynesian Village Resort, and I went through all of their menus at their restaurants on allears.net before this, and they do not have Spam like they have in Hawaii. Spam is very big in Hawaii. And if you look up the history about that, it has to do with being very important in the war, in World War II, because they were able to ship it to other parts of the world and it would stay preserved. Malasadas. I did not know they had malasadas at the Polynesian Village Resort, and it is a Portuguese fried donut. And you can get them filled with various things. I did have them on the Big Island of Hawaii, and it's a donut. I mean, it's going to be amazing, right? So that was pretty fantastic. Dole Whip. You can get a Dole Whip in Hawaii, and you can get a Dole Whip in Disney World. I'm not sure which is the original. I feel like Disney World might be the original. I feel like Disney World.
There was like one place that I saw that sold Dole Whips, unless I wasn't paying attention. In Hawaii.
That's right. We were in Hawaii specifically. The smell. Let's talk about the smell.
Yeah, so it's not as prevalent now since they remodeled it, but the Great Ceremonial House used to have this like amazing smell to it.
We think the water feature had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and there was like tropical, and I think were there tropical plants growing at all, like by that waterfall? Well, if you're driving down,
hang on,
what are you looking
is it in
for?
this? Yes, this is a picture of us on our honeymoon. We stayed at the Grand Floridian picture. But yes, this is sitting by the, you can't see the water, but we're sitting by the waterfall. Oh yeah, you kind of can. Yeah, you can see the water. But all the tropical plants that are there at the Polynesian.
Yeah, so that waterfall's not there anymore, so it's a little bit different. But there was this smell that was like unlike, and it was a good smell, and it was unlike anything, just specifying. It was just very distinctive. And when we were driving down the road to Hana in Maui, which is a very tropical area, and we rolled down the windows of our car, we're like, oh my gosh, it's the same smell as the Polynesian lobby. So
can you really say we rolled down the windows?
Yeah, why not?
Because rolling, you don't roll them down.
But that's what people still say.
I know, but you kind of now
when we push the button to
yeah, but now you're kind of like implying like the window rolls underneath. Okay, we digress. Yes.
What else would you call it?
Lowered the windows.
When we lowered the windows.
Opened the windows.
Open. There you go.
So when we opened the windows,
that's probably the least weird thing to say.
It really did smell exactly like the lobby of the Polynesian. That was kind of crazy. Which seems like a weird thing to talk about if you've never been there, specifically if you've never been to Disney World, or I should say, generally speaking, if you've never been to Disney World, specifically if you've never been to the Polynesian. But once you've been there, people are so obsessed with the smell, they scour the internet to find a replica of the scent.
This is a thing for people, and we're some of them.
We are,
but
totally.
You can go online and you can buy candles and air fresheners that smell like certain parts of Disney World, from like even like the Haunted Mansion, which I didn't realize had a smell.
And we now own.
Yeah, and we now own a what are they called?
They're like wax melts. We do have one from the Polynesian as well.
Grand Floridian. Like, there are Disney World smells, and they bring up memories of like fond memories of vacation in people. So anyway, another authentic part of the Polynesian is, or was, when the waterfall was there, the smell.
Yes, it very much smells amazing. And it is a very difficult smell to replicate, as we've found, because when companies try to replicate it, they very much struggle. I think something I wanted to mention was the chickens. There are not any chickens running or cats running amok at the Polynesian Village Resort. However, if you watch Moana, that is authentic when they, hey, and the old man says, I'm concerned about that chicken. There are chickens running amok everywhere in Hawaii.
Specifically Maui. We didn't see them in the Big Island.
We didn't see as many in the Big Island.
Big Island has like sheep and goats randomly. I wasn't
cats though.
expecting
There's
that.
Cats everywhere, which is amazing. But yes. So if Disney wants to make it more authentic, they need to add in some
cats.
Cats and chickens.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? So I guess
last fun fact about the Polynesian. Fun fact, bonus fact. The Polynesian is the site of where the Beatles broke up. John Lennon signed the papers to break up the Beatles at the Polynesian Resort in December 29th, 1974.
I would have guessed 71. Okay, so in general, how do you think, now that we know that Hawaii is quite similar to other Polynesian islands, territories, countries. How do you feel, because that's what you can compare it to, how do you feel the Polynesian Village Resort compares in terms of authenticity to the real Polynesia?
Very much so. The hotel isn't like any of the hotels we actually stayed at in Hawaii, but the style is traditional, like Polynesian village, as the name implies. And the grounds with the tropical plants, the signage, all of that stuff, that's very authentic.
And the food is quite authentic, but like I mentioned, it is a lot more, I think, retro, old-fashioned, original. They do still eat like that, a lot of pork. If you have ever been to a luau, where they bury the pork in the sand. Disney does have a luau. I've been to a luau in Hawaii as well as in Disney. That is totally authentic as well. But something I have always kind of thought to myself, in the end of the day, if you're kind of thinking, should we stay at the Polynesian or should we not? I think there's two things to consider. What is your reason for going there? Is your reason just because you like the tropical Polynesian theme? Totally do it. It's awesome. If you can afford it, it's very expensive. It's one of Disney's most expensive hotels.
Bonus, it's in a prime location and you'll pay for it.
Yes, it is 2 stops away from the Magic Kingdom on the monorail.
And you can see the Magic Kingdom fireworks from the Polynesian across the Seven Seas Lagoon.
Yes. So I would absolutely stay at the Polynesian. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's authentic. I don't think you should do it instead of going to actually to Hawaii or anywhere else in Polynesia, for that matter.
True.
True story. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for something else that you want us to compare in terms of authenticity, or I guess any video suggestions, but we're kind of on this authenticity kick right now. So if you have any suggestions for another video, please leave them in the comments down below, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.